He may be a hardcore UFC fan, a practitioner and student of the fight game, studied every pay-per-view within which every fight.
Time reaching John. Oh, John landed on that kick. Another knockdown!
But what of the man who pulls every string, the orchestrator of violence himself, one who, for better or worse, remains the ruler of a fighting conglomerate?
So now you have $360 million.
I got a couple bucks.
The true face of the UFC, his iron fist dictates every bout, every event. Common knowledge, yes, but down under the depths of this iceberg lies Dana White's dirty secrets. The forgotten tales of old, the weird.
You guys kiss?
The dangerous.
This guy used to text me telling me he was going to kill me.
And the unexplainable.
I want to oil you up. What the fuck does that mean?
It's a treacherous journey to the deepest parts of such a man's psyche. But I'm willing to take you through it all. I simply ask that you consider liking or subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, this is the UFC's complete Dana White iceberg. We begin our journey at the surface. The tip of the iceberg represents the clear, the obvious, facts, myths, and legends that even MMA's biggest casual would likely have heard in passing conversation. They are pieces of knowledge that are in many ways rites of passage. Dana is Joe Rogan. The sport's biggest misconception, this is the notion that those with a minimal interest in MMA and Dana White's dealings often confuse his name and appearance with that of another bald man, one of equally great success operating in the same space. A mistake usually relegated to new fans, but this high-profile example probably the most egregious.
What's Joe Rogan's dream?
What's Joe Rogan's dream?
Joe Rogan, Dana White. What's Dana White's dream?
Did you just think I was Joe Rogan?
I totally did.
She just called me fucking Joe Rogan. You thought I was fucking Joe Rogan?
Fighter pay. The phrase almost always associated with Dana White. The battle for fighter pay in the UFC is one so prevalent that it deserves its spot at the iceberg's surface. For those who put their lives on the line, and for our entertainment, undoubtedly deserve a bounty of riches as compensation. But now it's a once hoped-for future that hasn't come to pass.
Everybody acts like this is a fucking career. This isn't a career. This is not a career. This is an opportunity. So you have to take every opportunity that you can get.
Probably just can't do it anymore. With the deductions and the loss of the fight tonight, I'm probably going to have to rob someone in the car park. So if anyone's got any money on him, who's got the most on him?
CM Punk. As much as Dana White and co have claimed to shed the skin of showmanship and bloodthirst for a veneer of professionalism, it's decisions like the signing of wrestling icon CM Punk that totally undermine such a notion.
I didn't really feel anything except blue balls, kind of, because I just want to punch him in the face, and I can't on the stage. So Saturday's going to be fun.
His tenure signed off at the hands of White was as disastrous as you may expect. $1 million in contract costs and a regretful boss once the dust had settled.
The guy's 39 years old. I love the guy. He's the nicest guy in the world. We gave him 2 shots, you know, and he had a lot of heart tonight in this fight, and yeah, I think you should call it a wrap.
His appearance was one thing, but to pay him such egregious amounts whilst honed and weathered athletes struggle to make a living is another. Dana White's Contender Series. The Contender Series refers to a spin-off edition of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. A smaller stage, sure, but one that allows motivated challengers to not just earn a coveted contract in the UFC, but a chance to light the digital stage on fire. Notable alumni since its inception in 2017 include the bantamweight king Sugar Sean O'Malley,
Sterling on hit.
fan favorite Big Mouth Kevin Holland,
But he wouldn't shut up. The entire fight he was talking to me.
and one of the UFC's most polarizing athletes to date, Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill.
That's what she said!
Another path for hungry athletes is only a positive on the surface. Chosen few who make it through to the other side and on the big stage are rewarded with a contract of measly proportions. Some make it through to success as the stories tell, but many don't in a game rigged for financial failure. The John Jones bias. Dana White's relationship with the ever-erratic John Jones has been polarizing to say the very least.
As far as the relationship with us, me and Lorenzo are both disgusted.
But it is only recently that their dynamic has turned over a new leaf. As the stagnating ruler of the heavyweight division, he is to many holding it hostage. And despite overwhelming claims for a vacation of the throne in favor of interim champ Tom Aspinall, Dana White has, without fail, continually came to the defense of his star man.
So, John Jones is absolutely positively the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Probably the greatest fighter of all time in any sport.
Jan Blachowicz refractor. Ooh, John Jones.
That's badass. That is fucking badass. Look at that card.
That's a very special card.
When you think about When you talk about who's the baddest dude in the world, you put two guys in a room and who walks out? John Jones walks out of the room every time.
We arrive at the base of the iceberg, where through Dana White's web, the stories spun get ever more sinister, bordering on the realm of the unknown. Power Slap. We spoke about the undermining of sensibility in favor of showmanship and quick dopamine hits. Dana White's introduction of new company Power Slap embodies that sentiment to a T.
Oh my God!
Inspired by the rogue and sporadic slap competitions originating in Russia, it's a crude form of entertainment adapted for a modern age. Defied concerns of athlete well-being and long-term health risks are rife, but Dana, it seems, remains ever headstrong, convinced of its larger scale success.
The deal that I just cut for Slap is bigger than the UFC deal we cut with Spike TV after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't give a shit what the media says about it. They don't matter.
Mighty Mouse erased. Dana White's long arm even now remains ever unforgiving. Those who step out of line, cross the mark in the slightest, may fall victim to grave consequences. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson might be the most egregious example. A man revered and respected by hardcore fans, but to the casual many, a name entirely unknown. Unexpected for a man with an unprecedented 11 title defenses, but his battles outside of the cage with the boss ensures that the fighting scriptures would be written without his name. His repeated calls for improved pay, not just for himself, but his brothers and sisters in arms, have put him firmly in Dana White's black book.
I fight. They specifically said we do not give pay-per-view points to flyweight guys. When I fought Henry Cejudo, they would give me pay-per-view points just for that one fight.
First of all, when he did his deal, he didn't want pay-per-view. Right. He didn't want pay-per-view. He wanted upfront money, no pay-per-view.
I've been told that once they became champion, they got $500,000 flat, and it went straight in their contract. They got pay-per-view points every single time.
He has the lowest selling pay-per-view in the history of the UFC in the modern era.
You want to be a fighter. This refers to Dana White's infamous mic moment, the knock-on effect of which potentially saved the company. In a desperate bid to keep the UFC afloat, reality show The Ultimate Fighter was born. Athletes fighting one another whilst living under one roof, the winner was to receive a coveted six-figure contract in the UFC. To do so required a debt of blood, but on the very first season, not a single man was willing to put on the gloves and throw down. That was until White stepped in.
I'm not happy right now. I have the feeling that some guys here that don't want to fight, but I don't know what everybody thought they were coming here for. Do you want to be a fighter? That's the question. It's not about cutting weight. It's not about living in a house. It's about, do you want to be a fighter? It's not all signing autographs and banging broads when you get out of here. So the question is, not did you think you had to make weight? Did you think you had to do this? Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Fight Island. Fight Island refers to Dana White's bold business decision as the world ground to a halt in the wake of the COVID pandemic. As other businesses closed up shop for the foreseeable future, White relied on the same out-of-the-box thinking that saved the UFC from extinction so many years ago.
We went through COVID. COVID was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my career, going through COVID. We had people battling us. There's an interview of me where I tell you, we have a fight coming up this Saturday. And the reporter asked me, where is it? I said, it's none of your business. It's on ESPN. That's where it is. Nobody's getting laid off. We're all going to be fine, and we're going to fight through this together.
The backlash was prevalent, but many consider the decision in hindsight a correct one, as though in front of empty seats and soulless arenas, the events constructed gave us iconic moments like this. And of course this. Tier 3 marks the underside, where for even a man as morally ambiguous as Dana White, the stories found here are surprising and strange to any dedicated UFC fan. Jake Paul bet. Dana White's beef with the polarizing YouTuber turned boxer has run its course. The latter, though still with detractors, has earned his respect in the combat sports world, shed his old skin and taken up the sweet science seriously. Few can doubt his commitment to the fight game, though the quality of his opponents is to be questioned.
It's taking the hymns. He's trying to get
But amidst the beginning trend of fighting past prime MMA fighters, Dana White would make the boldest of claims.
There's a kid right now that's fighting that kid, Jake Paul. One of our fighters who's retired.
But he's boxing,
and he's
right?
a wrestler. Let me tell you what, I hope you can bet on this thing, because I'll bet $1 million.
Oh, here we
that
go.
he loses this fucking fight.
From a pure athletic perspective, anyone with sense could see Ben was outmatched, outgunned. And come the fight, it went as exactly as you may expect.
Get my money, Jake! Get my motherfucking money, Jake! Get my motherfucking money, Jake!
Dana White is no stranger to lies and deception, and unsurprisingly, he would never make true on his monetary promise. Flyweight conspiracy. In a post-Mighty Mouse era, the 125-pound division lay rife with ruin, its ruler and long-reigning king dispatched by the now great Henry Cejudo. And with that result, not a breath of fresh air for an aging roster, but the erasure of its poster boy. Mighty Mouse's loss was to Dana White the final nail in the coffin for the smallest men's division. Casual fan perception was the view that flyweights lacked power and stars, when in truth their skill sets couldn't have been more diverse. And the lack of stars was more so the fault of Dana refusing to promote his athletes.
Does the future of the division hang in the balance? I mean, he suggested that maybe you talked about getting rid of it. Is that a possibility?
What I said to him was, a couple of years ago, we were actually talking about getting rid of the division. There was never a threat to him, oh, we're gonna get rid of the division. That was complete bullshit.
The rumor mill would circulate, and a super fight with bantamweight king TJ Dillashaw carried the narrative. For a new king to arrive would mean an end to the division as we knew it.
I would argue it's one of the most important fights in UFC history.
Why is that?
And here's why. Henry Cejudo and his team believe that if they lose on Saturday night, the UFC is going to get rid of the flyweight division.
I'm doing this, TJ. I'm not doing it just for me, man. I'm doing it for everybody. I'm doing it for all the 125.
And that's your problem. So you know. I'm doing this for myself. This is a selfish sport. I'm going out there and I'm winning for myself. I'm going to be the greatest.
But thankfully, it would not come to be. And through Cejudo's efforts and the birth of a new legendary rivalry, Dana White's grand plan would fail, at least for the time being. Colby Covington video. Dana White, through his best efforts, only shows us what he wants us to see. So any rare moment that shows the true man behind the corporate curtain is not only insightful, but chilling. Colby Chaos Covington would live up to his nickname in doing so, turning heel and risking his UFC career for the sake of brand and character.
We in Vegas, making Vegas great again. Dana, what's up, bro? How you doing? How you doing? I just want an explanation why I'm not fighting for the belt this weekend.
Stop filming.
Come on, bro. I want an explanation, man.
Gambling, you too.
Even after last night, I don't hate the kid. And last night it wasn't as bad as it looked on video. He you know, it looked like it was whatever.
No one knows the exact truth behind this video, but many point to Dana White's potential promiscuity on full show when it was meant to be kept hidden. Francis Ngannou, another man on Dana White's blacklist. Francis followed the same steps as Mighty Mouse Johnson in campaigning for the betterment of his fellow warriors.
When you kind of like think about those stuff, you're like, this contract is messed up. This is not a contract. This is a ownership. I don't want to be owned by somebody. I just want to be free. A fighter make promotion.
Of course.
Yeah, you know, like, yes, promotion do help. They do help each other, but fighter make promotion. Recently, they signed a huge deal with Crypto.com. That was a good deal for them.
As the reigning heavyweight champion, he would vacate and depart on top, much to the eye of the boss. And after finding monetary success in the boxing realm when White said he wouldn't, his UFC legacy was to be incinerated entirely. A decision motivated by spite, I'm sure. Total removal from the video game where past legends still remain. And most recently, his statistics noticeably absent. But there are those in this game who still continue to honor him, even if Dana White will not.
I respect Francis so much. He's an integral part of what we've done in the UFC. You know, right now I know there's competition between other promotions and the UFC, but again, you can never erase history because the streets, the internet will always remember. You can't erase Francis's legacy in the UFC. It's part of what we've done. You know, it's forever in history, in stone. So trying to whitewash it or just not talk about it is silly. And I know he's fighting for, you know, the PFL right now, but it's still history.
Arriving at Tier 4, the depths, we have traveled far deeper than most, and it only gets wilder from here. De La Hoya beef. You are bound to have enemies in this game, and following the historic Mayweather vs McGregor super fight, Dana White would find another from the boxing realm. The once fighting legend Oscar De La Hoya would begin a feud spanning years, with the two repeatedly sparring verbally across social media.
He is a lying, two-faced, hypocritical sack of shit.
We ever see you guys settle your differences in a ring or an octagon, Oscar?
Beat his ass. A good friend of yours, Oscar De La Hoya, has announced he's coming out of retirement to box again. I just wondered if you had any...
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money.
I'm sure their quarrel is one with lies and half-truths on both sides, but it's one I doubt will ever be settled until either man is dead and buried. James Toney. Before CM Punk redefined the gimmick fight, boxing legend James Toney was the first pioneer in the UFC. For Dana White, it was a chess move on the board of Combat Sports, one last play. A decision set with the full intention of having Toney lose, allowing him to set the tone that MMA was superior to boxing in every facet. Or maybe it was built with the purpose of selling just another pay-per-view for a quick buck. But regardless, the improbable deal was reached, and against all odds, Toney would be the first boxer to ever grace the UFC's bloodstained canvas. It would go about as well as you'd expect, with Randy Couture's wrestling making quick work. It was a one-and-done deal, but the after effect undeniably set the tone of what the UFC stood for years to come. We got them. A man born perhaps just a tad before a digital modern age, Dana White's efforts in taking down the rampant illegal streaming network were, to begin with, humorous.
And I love how cool and tough these guys act on social media. And let me tell you what they do. They cry, and they cry. And, we'll see how tough they are when they get caught.
With the rising pay-per-view prices causing a sea of disillusioned fans, various piracy bases would continue to grow. I just don't think Dana White knew how much.
We got one. We got him. We're watching this guy right now. All you have to do is turn it on Saturday, and we got you, fucker. I can't wait. Turn it on Saturday, streamers, and see what happens.
The insinuation that just one man was behind such an extensive operation is hilarious, but pointed to how out of touch the man at the helm truly is. Steroid arc. In light of his rapidly declining health, Dana has clearly gone under a drastic transformation for the better. The High Life's allure claims even the greatest athletes, so to see its clutches once on the UFC's frontman is little surprise.
My legs were so fucked up that I couldn't put my socks on in the morning. I couldn't bend over to put my socks on. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and throw up almost every night. I was borderline diabetic. I was like 1/10 of a point away from being diabetic. He said, if you keep doing what you're doing right now and you stay on this trajectory, you got 10.4 years.
And though he may point to a total change in every facet contributing to his newfound fitness, it's abundantly clear that steroids have done the heavy lifting. Tito boxing match. Tito Ortiz was once a friend and a colleague and eventually employee of Dana White. But just like so many of those who he once held good relations with, petty issues and feuds would plague their friendship. So much so that it would go beyond bickering and the occasional insult in a press conference, escalating to an organized boxing match between the two.
But the most pissed off you've ever been?
Nobody's pissed me off more than Tito Ortiz.
Did you really think that you would beat Tito Ortiz in a boxing match?
I knew it, and so did he. That's why it didn't happen. In a boxing match, I was gonna fuck him up and make him look stupid. And he knows that.
As entertaining as the match could have been, it would never come to pass, with Ortiz of the two failing to make the weigh-in. Ariel Helwani beef. Dana White undoubtedly has many men in his crosshairs, but arguably the most prominent of them all is the face of MMA journalism, Ariel Helwani. Their relationship has been turbulent, to say the least.
I don't give a shit what Ariel Helwani thinks.
Fair enough.
Who the fuck is Ariel Helwani to question anything that we do?
The final straw would come at UFC 200, an event on its last legs through Jones's steroid tests and McGregor's usual antics. An event of its status needed that extra flair and panache, and thus the secret return of Brock Lesnar was to be announced in advance. But Ariel, in abiding by his journalistic principles, would break the news before it was made official, prompting White to unleash a tirade of insults and unjustly bar him from attending any UFC events in the foreseeable future.
It was dirty. He knows it was dirty. And he threw a big pity party for himself. Crying on camera and shit. It's fucking just ridiculous. So
why did you leak the information? I didn't leak anything. I would never defy that trust. I was never told that something was under embargo, that something was a lie. I was never told that. Don't ever let anyone push you around. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't do something. You can do whatever you want.
Eventually, due to overwhelming backlash from fans and fighters, his credentials would be reinstated, but it was a tale that acted as a reminder to all. Step out of line and face Dana's wrath. Wife slap incident. It was an innocuous and routine New Year's celebration, and for White, his club appearance was standard procedure. But with seemingly no cameras nor media, the true colors of the UFC's president, fueled by alcohol, would reveal themselves. The recording was the smoking barrel, and the news would spread like wildfire. The joking comparisons to Power Slap were of course rampant, but we must not make light of such a situation. Physical violence isn't to be condoned in any capacity, and at the very least, it seems that White has been regretful regarding the subject ever since.
You don't put your hands on a woman ever. There was definitely a lot of alcohol involved, but that's no excuse. And what is my punishment? Here's my punishment. I got to walk around for however long I live. Is it 10.4 years or is it another 25 years? And I gotta, this is how I'm labeled now.
We arrive at the bottom of the iceberg, and yet not our final destination today. Here lies the most unusual tales, many of which forgotten, even more swept under the rug by Dana's own admission. Virtual Dana. This refers to Dana's appearance on the digital front, inside the realm of the UFC game as a playable character. Whilst other far more deserving individuals and athletes are still not usable by the millions, and others have been unjustly removed, Dana White remains in the game ever since its third EA rendition, which, as a silver lining, allows stuff like this.
Screen in throughout the next hour or so.
Oh, the jab! Oh, the triple.
Dana just...
Oh,
Dana's is on
Parents abandoned. Dana may be a global success story, a multi-millionaire and pioneer of a fighting empire, but his story even before the hardships of the UFC's early years were equally rife with struggle. A man from a broken home, his tumultuous relationship with his parents was only evident once the UFC success was clear. Numerous interviews with his mother and her published book shed some light on the man Dana truly was in her eyes.
He's not a good person. He seems to have lost his character somewhere along the way. He mistreats people. It's terrible the way he speaks of women and treats women. That really bothers me because I don't believe I've ever brought him up to behave like that.
Sincerity, or a case of jealousy, I'm not sure. But upon his parents' eventual passing, White would pull no punches on his sentiment towards them.
I don't think I've ever talked about this, but my parents both died recently.
Did you feel sad when you knew they died, or did you feel it was the end of a...
No, I didn't wish any ill will on either one of my parents, but, you know, no, I didn't. When they passed away, I had almost no feelings about it, to be honest with you.
Tomato Man. This comical nickname refers to Dana at his absolute worst, either when stress had taken its toll or his poor health and lifestyle was catching up to him.
That's fucking illegal. I can't stand that fucking creep, if you couldn't tell. No, No, I didn't say that. You said that.
And thus, the nickname coined by the MMA fanbase was born, Tomato Man, in relation to his reddening skin, which I would say is epitomized by this image. Tito Ortiz's kiss, arguably one of the most surprising events near the bottom of the iceberg. Dana White's long-standing feud with former friend and fighter Tito Ortiz has been well established. But this strange moment, I would wager many of you haven't seen.
Will you guys kiss on camera? Will you guys kiss?
Paul Daly. Many fighters lay on the iceberg due to their feuds with the boss. I have told tales of Mighty Mouse Johnson, the erasure of Francis Ngannou, but Paul Daly was one of the very first with a losing hand. One of the UK's MMA pioneers, he was more than entertaining inside of the cage, with devastating KO power. But his biggest weakness wasn't a technical or physical hole in his game, his temperament would be his end. Neutralized across 15 minutes by heel Josh Koscheck in a title elimination once the dust had settled, and as a result, Dana White would rightfully lay down the law.
Have you follow up on that incident?
He's done. I don't give a shit if he's the best 170-pounder in the world. He'll never come back here again.
You're cutting him from the UFC.
Yeah, he'll never come back.
And everybody makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. But there's no place in this sport or this business for stuff like that. What bothered me even more was his answer. When I went up into the octagon and talked to him after, he said, I didn't hear the bell. And when I asked him, do you want to continue fighting in the UFC? He shrugged his shoulders and turned his, well, there you go. Now you won't.
In normal circumstances, that would be that. But years on, the game has changed. Thanks to Conor McGregor, the standards have dropped. Fighters since committing far worse acts, and yet their behavior lay unpunished, and in many ways encouraged by Dana.
During my interview, this hooligan comes by saying some stuff.
Let's talk about that opening sequence.
Maybe not. As I'm walking up to him, I got my hands behind my back to signal I'm not coming here for problems. So I had to give him the 3-piece with the soda, and then just glide out of there,
Nelk Boys. With fighter pay being a continuous point of contention within the MMA space, as previously mentioned, White's relationship with YouTuber group Nelk has only added fuel to the fire. An array of individuals characterized by their frat and party lifestyles. Their crossovers with Dana are usually defined by excessive alcohol consumption and high-stakes gambling.
Come on. Yep. Big. Yep. Let's go!
Six-figure hands lost and brushed off, whilst fighters worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. And their friendship dynamic was heavily criticized come a birthday gift from Dana himself.
What the fuck? You get him more.
No. Holy shit. Holy fuck. Back to Tootsies? That's bro.
You're welcome.
We have arrived at our final tier, and the most sinister of them all. In the abyss of the UFC's Iceberg lays the darkest and most obscure tales. Boss incident was an inside job. The build to Khabib's title fight at UFC 223 is permanently stained by one single event. Conor McGregor's malicious attack was an attempt to mentally rattle his opponent and physically harm him in the process. He had overstepped every moral boundary, and at least initially on the surface, Dana White would rightfully condemn his actions.
This is the most disgusting thing that has ever happened in the history of the company.
And how about your professional relationship with Conor?
Not good. I think that after this disgusting, despicable move, I think everybody's relationship with Conor is gonna be not so great.
But the knock-on effect of such an event was history-defining. It marked a new era for the sport, one where being a slave to controversy was rewarded rather than shunned. Khabib and McGregor's eventual bout 6 events later was a reflection of that, selling a still-standing record of 2.3 million pay-per-views. And when it comes to money, we all know that it's Dana White's primary motivation over everything. Only the man himself will know the truth about what transpired back in 2018. But the notion that Conor McGregor's antics were a planned event, or at the very least admired by White, is an understandable idea. Ronda Rousey rumors. Ronda Rousey was at one point in time the UFC's golden goose behind the notorious Conor McGregor. She redefined what women's MMA could be, and furthermore brought it into the UFC single-handedly. Her success on a monetary front had her in Dana White's good books, and recognized as a close companion. It's hard to even imagine White holding such an opinion when he is on record saying this.
When are we gonna see women in the UFC, man?
Never.
Never? Never?
But Rousey changed the game, and her continuous relationship with the boss had rumors swirling that it had become more than just business. Reinforced by the fleeting ideas of Dana's promiscuity outside of his marriage, it became a constant point of contention until her departure from the sport. She had special privileges, sure, as did all of Dana White's chosen favorites. But I think her tenacity and domination more than likely earned them, rather than a fleeting rumor. Corn stars. No, not that kind. Only Dana White's darkest details tend to lay near the bottom of the iceberg, but this one is a rare exception. White is not one to hide from the public eye and media, but his appearance on the hit TV series has been largely forgotten by the masses.
I'm building this weapons room in my house, and what I'm really looking for today is a sword.
This sword is from the 1600s. It looks like it was made just yesterday.
Right. I'll tell you what. I'll take this for $30,000, and I'll buy every one of those swords that you showed me over there, too.
That's a deal I can't refuse.
Those katanas weren't just for show or the screens either. Dana, in fact, still owns them to this very day. Mob ties. No empire is founded without hardship, and Dana's early years are no different. Before his ties to the Fertitta brothers, and going on to develop the UFC with them that we know and love, Dana had connections to an array of shady characters, one of which, James Whitey Bulger, an infamous mob boss with extensive power and influence. A deal gone awry, Dana hedging his bets, the reasoning isn't known, but he had found himself in the man's black book, and had to find a way out by any means necessary.
These guys rolled up on me one day at the gym. They wanted some money. They walked away that day, and I was thinking, man, I don't even want to know these guys. You know, it was like $1,500, $2,500, whatever the number was at the time. Which was like $25,000 to me in those days, you know what I mean? Right. I got a phone call at my house, and they're basically like, you owe some money by tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
What did you think was going to happen?
No, it's nothing good. Nothing good was going to happen at 1 o'clock. So I literally that day, I hung up, picked it back up, and got a one-way flight to Vegas.
I hope now, as we have traversed to the darkest depths below the surface, I have served you well on this journey. The psyche of Dana White is one that can't fully be explained, and I'm sure more of his tales will unearth themselves in time. Until then, I ask that you dwell on these stories and consider everything you have learned about the man who spearheads our sport.